It's post-pandemic, but you still want to keep your photography at a distance. Or perhaps even though your model is COVID negative, but you want to get them isolated in your photos. Or maybe you're just in search of a camera lens that has a wide aperture, but you only got small aperture money. If the longest lens you got is 70mm or even 50mm, there's something you're missing out on. In this video, we're talking about the 85mm f1.8 and why it's going to be the next lens in your kit. Hey fam, mga kapatid, I'm Mike, nurse photographer and videographer, and I make videos about camera gear, camera tutorials for new photo and video shooters. One of the next best lenses that you could get after your 35 or 50mm is an 85mm. It's got you covered when photographing or filming portraits, products, B-roll, or even macro when you attach macro extension tubes to them. Maybe you're ready for your next lens to be a zoom lens, like a 70 to 200mm. But trust me, you're going to want to ditch it for this lens. Unless you're going to absolutely need the 200mm, consider the 85mm. 85mm is significantly lighter in weight, best for its everyday carry, and less conspicuous compared to its big white cannon of a counterpart out in public. The 85mm f1.8 weighs 371 grams, but even the lighter version of the 70 to 200mm at f4 weighs in at 840 grams. If 85mm is still short, you can just slap it on a crop sensor body like an A6400 and that 85mm becomes 127mm. You could also achieve this on some full-frame Sony cameras via their crop modes. Amongst other lenses you may not need, a macro lens may be part of this list. If you're eyeing a 90mm macro lens from Sony or a 100mm macro lens from Canon, consider getting an 85mm and throw macro extension tubes right on it. Most macro lenses come in at f2.8, but your 85mm already opens up wider to f1.8. If you need to close down your aperture to f2.8 or lower, you got the option, whereas in macro lenses, you got no choice wider than f2.8. Even if aperture size doesn't matter, aside from saving your back and your money, this lens is also good for pandemic-like attributes. It's good for isolating your subjects from far away, whether it's a person or persons for portrait photography, or even product photography when working in smaller areas of focus when photographing or filming. This lens is the complete opposite of your phone camera that typically takes wide-angle photos at 24mm, showing much of the environment. Maybe 20 to 40% of the photo is the person, unless they're taking a selfie, of course. When it comes to the 85mm, your subject is occupying 60 to 80% of the frame, depending on how much room you have to actually back up to take the photo. As someone who photographs many portraits, products, and sometimes events at church, I like to be able to get photos from a distance, isolate my subjects, and especially get that smooth compression of that background. If I need extra reach, I will often pair this lens with my Sony a6400, a crop sensor camera, to have that 127mm kind of reach, because you multiply the lens by 1.5 crop factor. So 85 times 1.5 is 127. I'll be honest, there are times when I awe at 85 f1.4, but the kinds of shots that I get with 85 1.8 is already more than enough for me, at least for the outcomes that I get, in addition to the impact of the overall form factor and weight. I usually like to use prime lenses when I do portrait photography, so I'm back and forth between this 85mm and a 35mm f1.8. The lens that I use a lot is the Sony 24 to 105 f4. I often come back to that lens, but when I carry those two prime lenses, it's almost redundant to bring the 24 to 105 for the photo session. I enjoy having the 85mm, but it's not ideal in every scenario. The minimum or closest focus distance for the 85mm f1.8 is 180 centimeters or 2.63 feet. This may not be ideal for someone in close spaces. If I want a top-down shot, it may still be out of focus. Or if I want to take a picture of someone close to my proximity, I still can't get them in focus. Or if I want to have more of the environment in my frame, but I don't have enough room behind me to back up because there's a cliff, yeah, that's not going to work out. The 85mm will be the reach you're looking for beyond 24 to 70mm. It's just packed for bokeh just at the end of its 180 centimeter focusing distance. And you'll just fall in love with the compression you get for your models and products. It's really hard to miss. Just be within that focusing distance. And all of this at its form factor is just too sweet to ignore. The Sony 85mm f1.8 starts at $598, but you could also get it pretty decently used. For you Sony APS-C shooters using those Alpha 600 series, it's $349.99 for the Sony 50mm f1.8 or the Sigma 56mm f1.4, which pretty much adds up around 85mm. If you want to see what kind of look a 50mm will give you, take a look at this cinematic vlog over here, or take a look at this review right across from it. Thanks again for watching. Now go out there and shoot for the life that matters. See ya!